Urgency and conviction are the heartbeat of any real transformation. Without them, we delay decisions that could save our peace, our purpose, and sometimes our very sanity. It's not just about knowing what to do, it's about feeling the weight of why we must do it now. When it comes to toxic people, the danger isn't only in what they say or do, it's in how long we let it continue. The longer we allow their presence in our space, the deeper the damage goes. Time, in their hands, becomes a weapon. And if we don't move with urgency, if we don't act with conviction, they'll keep chipping away at who we are until we barely recognize ourselves in the mirror. There's something inside each of us that knows when a line has been crossed. It's not subtle, it comes like a rush in the chest, like heat rising behind the eyes, and yet we hesitate, we rationalize, we make room for patterns we should be breaking. Why? Because we fear what it will cost to walk away. But the truth is, it will always cost more to stay. Urgency is not panic, it's clarity, it's the calm, firm voice inside that says, "This ends now." It's a holy unrest that refuses to tolerate what wounds the soul. Conviction is more than having an opinion. It's being possessed by a truth that won't let you settle. Conviction grabs you by the shoulders and shakes you awake when comfort tries to lull you back into cycles. It reminds you that you are not here to carry dysfunction as a cross, that you don't owe loyalty to people who thrive on your silence, that boundaries are not rude, they are righteous, and urgency walks hand in hand with that truth. It says you can't put this off until next week. This is not something to circle back to. You know what needs to be done, and you need to do it now. There's power in immediacy. Toxic people count on your delay. They count on your compassion turning against you. They count on your fear of being misunderstood. But urgency breaks the cycle. Conviction silences the noise. When you move with both, you don't need to justify or explain. You don't need to draft long speeches or replay every moment. You know, that's enough, and once you know, it's your responsibility to act. The queen doesn't wait for permission to guard her kingdom. She sees the threat, she recognizes the cost of inaction, and she moves. That's what urgency and conviction look like. They're not loud, they're not dramatic, they're decisive, a clean break, a firm no, a door closed without apology, because the longer you wait, the harder it gets. And every day you hesitate, you teach yourself that your peace is negotiable, but it's not anymore. You said, explain this keynote to moral clarity into 512 words. Don't add any headings, and any conclusion in last of keynote, and all speech must be like humans writing. ChatGPT said, moral clarity is knowing what's right even when it's hard, and standing on it even when you're standing alone. It's that deep, unshakable sense in your gut that says, this isn't okay, even if everyone around you says it's normal. In a world that constantly blurs the line between love and manipulation, between loyalty and self-betrayal, you need moral clarity like you need oxygen. Without it, you'll keep inviting harm into your life and calling it kindness. You'll confuse tolerance with wisdom, and you'll stay quiet when you should be walking away. Toxic people don't just test your patience, they test your principles. They twist your values inch by inch until you find yourself defending behaviors you never would have accepted before. You end up explaining away disrespect, minimizing the damage, or pretending it's not that deep. But it is that deep. It's deep enough to drain your joy, deep enough to distract you from your purpose, deep enough to make you question yourself instead of the one causing the pain. Moral clarity cuts through all of that. It reminds you that boundaries aren't cruel, that peace is not selfish, that your silence in the face of abuse is not humility, it's bondage. And if you don't draw a clear moral line, someone else will draw it for you. They'll convince you that forgiveness means allowing repeat offenses. They'll dress up chaos as passion and call emotional manipulation love. But when you have moral clarity, you don't fall for that. You don't keep drinking poison just because someone else says it's water. Having moral clarity means you stop making excuses for people who refuse to grow. You stop saying, they didn't mean it like that, when they've shown you exactly who they are, again and again. You stop over-functioning in relationships where you're the only one trying, the only one healing, the only one being accountable. Moral clarity doesn't mean you don't love people. It means you love them without lying to yourself. And let's be honest, sometimes it's not that you don't know what to do, it's that you're afraid of the fallout. You're afraid of the confrontation, the guilt, the silence that follows a necessary separation. But clarity doesn't require comfort, it requires courage. It's the quiet but firm voice that says, I know what's right, I know what's true, and I'm not backing down from that. You need that kind of vision to deal with toxicity. You need to be able to name things for what they are, not what you hope they become. You need the strength to say, this is not love, even if it once felt like it. Because when you have moral clarity, you stop settling for potential and start protecting your peace. You stop waiting for people to change and start choosing what honors your worth. You said, explain this keynote 3 identity and worth into 512 words. Don't add any sub. Headings and any conclusion in last of keynote and all speech must be like humans writing, Chat GPT said. When you know who you are, truly know it, everything changes, especially how you allow people to treat you. You, identity, and worth aren't just nice ideas or motivational buzzwords. They're the foundation of every decision you make, every boundary you hold, every person you keep or release. If you don't know your worth, you'll settle for relationships that drain you just to feel needed. You'll tolerate toxicity because you've confused your role in someone else's chaos with your value as a human being. The truth is, many of us were never taught how to see ourselves clearly. We learned how to please, how to shrink, how to survive. And when that becomes your identity, you end up believing that pain is the price of connection. You start to think love looks like proving yourself, fixing someone else, or staying quiet so they stay calm. But love doesn't require you to disappear, and worth is not something you earn by carrying more than your share. You were not created to live small just to make others feel comfortable. You were not designed to tolerate emotional games, disrespect, or manipulation in the name of loyalty. Your identity is not in how much you can endure, it's in the strength to walk away when your peace is under attack. The more clearly you see your worth, the less accessible you become to dysfunction. You stop responding to chaos. You stop chasing people who only come close when they need something. You realize that being needed isn't the same as being valued. When your worth is secure, you don't argue with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You don't beg for reciprocity. You don't lose sleep over being liked because you've remembered who you are, and that remembrance gives you a kind of quiet power, the kind of power that doesn't yell, doesn't prove, doesn't perform. It just is. It walks into a room and doesn't shrink. It sets boundaries and doesn't apologize. It says no and doesn't feel guilty. Toxic people thrive where insecurity lingers. They look for cracks in your identity, places where you doubt yourself, where you're still unsure if you deserve more. They exploit the version of you that's still trying to earn love instead of receive it freely. But once you reclaim your worth, their power breaks, because you stop making room for dishonor. You stop settling for crumbs and calling it care. You are not too much. You are not hard to love. You are not asking for too much just because you want consistency, respect, and peace. That is your baseline. That is your birthright. When you carry yourself with the weight of that truth, everything shifts. You no longer fight for space. You take it. You no longer ask for permission to protect your peace. You command it. Knowing your identity isn't arrogance. It's alignment. And alignment is what keeps you grounded when everything around you tries to pull you back into who you used to be. You said, explain this keynote 4 call to responsibility into 512 words. Don't add any sub. Headings and any conclusion in last of keynote and all speech must be like humans writing, Chat GPT said. There comes a point when you can't blame anyone else for the weight you're still carrying. Not because they didn't hurt you, not because what happened wasn't real, but because healing becomes your responsibility even when the wound wasn't your fault. That's what a call to responsibility sounds like. It's not harsh, it's not cold, but it's firm. It's the quiet demand that says, you have to choose now, you can't stay here forever, and that choice to take ownership of your peace, your space, your life, is what separates survival from transformation. Responsibility doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means you refuse to let pain lead your decisions. It means you stop waiting for someone else to change, apologize, or finally understand you before you move forward. Because waiting like that only ties your healing to their choices, and that's a prison. You don't need their clarity to get yours. You don't need their growth to take your next step. You don't even need closure to close the door. The moment you recognize the cost of staying stuck, you realize that responsibility is freedom. It's the ability to say, I may not control what they do, but I control what I allow. It's the moment you stop rehearsing the story and start rewriting it. Not because it erases what happened, but because it refuses to let what happened define you any longer. It's not about proving you're strong. It's about finally deciding that your peace matters enough to be protected. And if you're going to level up, really level up, you're going to have to take responsibility for the doors you keep open, the people you keep explaining yourself to, the patterns you keep repeating because they feel familiar. Familiar isn't always safe, and just because you've normalized dysfunction doesn't mean it belongs in your future. At some point, you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, I can't keep blaming them for what I'm still choosing. You are the gatekeeper of your life. You set the tone, you decide who stays, what's allowed, and where you're headed, and every time you avoid responsibility, you give your power away. You let toxic people write chapters in a story they were never meant to be part of. But when you rise up and own your choices, something changes. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop rescuing people from the consequences of their own actions. You stop compromising with dysfunction just to keep the peace. The call to responsibility is not about shame, it's about stewardship. It's about realizing that your heart, your time, your energy, they're all sacred and you've been entrusted to guard them. It's not enough to be aware. Awareness without action is just observation. Responsibility is when you finally decide, no one is coming to save me, so I'm going to show up for myself. I'm going to make the hard decisions. I'm going to cut the ties. I'm going to rise. You said, explain this keynote 5 spiritual and emotional resolve into 512 words. Don't add any headings, and any conclusion in last of keynote, and all speech must be like humans writing. ChatGPT said, there's a kind of strength that doesn't shout. It doesn't come wrapped in applause. It doesn't always look powerful from the outside, but it holds you together when everything around you is pulling you apart. That's spiritual and emotional resolve. It's the decision to be steady when you have every reason to break. It's the quiet commitment to stay grounded in who you are, even when people are trying to drag you back into who you used to be. And if you're going to cut toxic people out of your life and actually move forward, you're going to need that kind of resolve, because this isn't just about letting go, it's about not looking back. Spiritual resolve is when your heart is anchored in something deeper than circumstance. It's when you decide that peace is not optional, that healing is non-negotiable, and that chaos is no longer welcome in your life, no matter how long you've lived with it. It's not just about having a good day or feeling strong in the moment. It's about choosing strength again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that, when the loneliness creeps in or the guilt starts whispering that maybe you were too harsh. Resolve silences those whispers with truth, with clarity, with a remembrance of everything you've already overcome. Emotional resolve doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you feel deeply and still choose to move forward. It means you don't let tears change your direction. You can cry and still walk away. You can grieve what could have been and still refuse to go back. Resolve is not the absence of emotion. It's the decision to honor your emotions without letting them hijack your future. It's knowing that peace isn't always painless. Sometimes it costs you familiar company, shared history, or even the comfort of routine. But the trade is worth it when your soul is at stake. And make no mistake, toxic people can sense when your resolve is shaky. They come back with just enough softness to test your boundaries. They say the right words, make the right promises, and try to hook you with nostalgia. But when your spirit is firm and your emotions are submitted to truth, you don't bend. You don't go back. You remember why you left. You remember the sleepless nights, the constant second guessing, the slow erosion of your confidence, and you stand firm, not because it's easy, but because your future is worth protecting. Spiritual and emotional resolve is what allows you to draw a line in the sand and not erase it when the pressure comes. It's what keeps your hands from reopening doors your soul begged you to shut. It's the strength to be misunderstood, the willingness to be alone, the discipline to keep choosing what's right, even when it doesn't feel good yet. It's the fire that burns quiet but steady, and once you have it, the game changes, because they can't manipulate what you've already surrendered to truth.